Hey Josie, so you asked me about my rocket design and how I get into orbit to save fuel. I've only been playing this thing for like a week, so the tools to build stuff I'm still getting a little used to. So the ones I use are a little goofy looking. It's really the next thing I want to pick up on. I was kind of good at the orbit stuff just because I'm kind of a dork when it comes to physics. But this is the one I've been using a lot. This is the one I made. It's got solid state rockets. These large ones are solid state, so there's no throttle control. You light them and they go. These smaller inner ones are also solid state. They're just smaller and they're at a separate stage. And if you look, there are 3 engines at the bottom of this that are actually controlled. This stage breaks off. There's an engine here. This breaks off. There's an engine here. And this whole thing is actually the lander. If you look at it, it's got retractable legs, lights. Here's the capsule, parachute at the top. When it breaks here, these legs actually extend down and it'll actually sit, and I can show you what that looks like too. But again, I don't really know a lot about making them. I will say that I use the symmetry tool, so it's even, so that it's pretty well even. And when you launch, it's not going to twist, it's not going to torque. It's got all these connectors. I would say make it as rigid as possible because you don't want the thing to twist or give any torque, because you waste a lot of fuel, you waste a lot of energy, and obviously you can rip the thing apart, which I did a million times trying to make these. So let's launch and show you what happens. I don't throttle anything up because I'm using just solid state, so I like the first stage, and all 6 of these outside rockets will launch. My goal is to get to about 10,000 meters. Okay, so I'm going to take off. This is moving pretty slowly. If you are using liquid fuel, what I would tell you to do is don't get above about 150 to 175 meters per second, which you can obviously see right here. I'm going to go way past that because I'm using solid state and I don't have any control over it. Once you get past 150 meters a second, you're wasting fuel. There's a lot of fuel that you could just leave on board because the momentum of the rocket will just keep it going. As you can see, this kind of gets off to a slow start. I've used this a couple times. This is actually the one that I used that I showed you earlier on. I actually used to use this one with just the smaller ones on the inside, and it worked just as well. But this allows me to save even more fuel because I burn these stages off, and that way when I'm in space, I can use the larger rockets down here. That way I can get back. With just these smaller ones inside, I was actually able to get all the way out to Minimus and land. But I couldn't get back because I didn't have enough fuel. So instead of scrapping it and building a bigger rocket, which I'm probably going to do sometime soon, whenever I get the time. I don't have all the time in the world to do this, but if I'm bored at work, basically, which is when I use this, I will be able to do it. All right, so now I burned through them at about 5,500 meters. I burned through that stage. I cut that stage loose, and I light the other solid states. So again, I still have no control. I still haven't used any actual fuel, because these I can't use in space. I can't use these for burns, because I can't shut them off. The only thing I can do is light them and then disconnect them. But as you see, we're getting to about 8,000. As you pass to about 10, I have SAS on throughout this whole thing, just in case something twists anyway, but I'm going to shut it off. When you get to 10, start to pitch the nose to one side. Generally, I aim for the 90-degree mark, which is this little 90 spot right here on the ball. Okay, as I pitch down, again, I have no control. These just burned out, so now I'm going to cut those loose. Now I've only got liquid fuel, so we have to use it. I'm going to turn that up, turn the SAS on just to keep it there, so I can switch to this. The fuel is still going, so the engines are still all the way up. If you look, I've got an arc here. I'm on the dark side of the planet because it's nighttime, but if I look at my apoapsis, I'm about 50 seconds from the top of the arc. It says T-minus 51, and it shows the meters. Actually, I'm going to pull this little ball up here so I can see it, so I can see where I'm headed. My goal here is to keep this eventually under 2 minutes and get my apoapsis to about 100,000 meters. Because you need to get above 70,000 to orbit this planet. So I'm going to keep going. Keep an eye on my fuel, because this is my larger stage. I can adjust my angle if I really want to. If I get closer to the horizon, it'll move a little quicker, but I won't get as high. I'm at 90,000. I'm a little past 2 minutes. It's a little further than I want, but I'm at 100,000. I press X and I cut my engines. How did I do on fuel? So I still have a decent amount of fuel left. Okay, I actually did pretty well on this one because I still have a lot of fuel in these stages, which if you right-click, you can see what your fuel consumption is. There's another fuel tank up here, which is full, and there's another fuel tank up here, which is full. So I have another 3 stages of rockets, and as you see, there's 3 engines here, there's an engine here, and there's an engine here. This is what I use for taking off. This is what I use for orbiting and for leaving an orbit, and this is what I use for landing and then taking off and coming back. I haven't really gotten an expert at not only landing on another planet, but coming back. I've only done it once, which took a little while. So the next thing is I want to learn how to make one that actually lands, because they have the whole runway thing, which I haven't gotten to. But so now I have an arc. If you look, I get to about 100,000. Okay, but it's obviously not enough for an orbit, right? I need to stay above 70,000 at the very minimum, so I give myself a little cushion. I wait till I get to the apoapsis, which is at this point the furthest away from the planet, because there is no parapsis, because that's the closest, and as you can see, you would just crash. So I'm going to warp a little bit. Warp. I showed you in the last one how to set maneuvers and how to make things, so how to plan ahead. So I'm going to add a maneuver here right at the apoapsis, and I'm going to prograde around, get a little quicker, and as you can see, the apoapsis shows up, and it actually switch places, which is how you know it's above 100,000 if I check. Ooh, it's actually at 200,000. So we'll bring it back down. It's not really important. 145, that's fine. Go back to the ship. Ooh, I got to get there quick. It says 6 seconds. I'm going to miss it. Miss my burn mark a little bit, but I don't have to be super precise about this since it's only just a burn around the planet. I like these motors. It's getting away from me a little bit, but that's okay. I can adjust them a little bit. I'm most likely going to run out of fuel before this burn is over, so what I do is as soon as it exhausts, I cut it loose, and I light that next stage. And usually I'm already here, so I'm a little bit ahead of the game anyway. So again, as I showed you in the last video, my burn's still going. These burns usually take a little while, and it's tough to keep right on that target. 14 seconds. If I look at my map, you can now see my actual orbit getting bigger. Getting bigger, getting bigger. As soon as you see the apoapsis spin, there's a parapsis, so now I'm not touching the ground, but it's only at 30,000. It's going to flip, which means they equal the same distance, which now means I'm at 100,000, so I can shut this off. So I'm good. I went a little further, so I'm at 200,000 on one side, and about 100, so I'm further, twice as further away here as I am here, but obviously it's such a large planet you're not going to notice. That's how you get in orbit and save time and save fuel. The next step, which would really be in anything, if you're going to land on any planet, is the same thing but backwards. So I'll show you this. I'm not even gonna plan it. I know that if I go retrograde and burn towards retrograde, it's going to shorten my. It's going to do the exact opposite of what we just did. It's going to shorten my my actual trajectory around the planet. So if you watch, I'm now pointing towards retrograde, which is basically backwards. I'm pointing away from where I'm going. So I'm going to slow the ship down, and I burn towards retrograde. You're going to see the exact opposite happen. And this is how you land on other planets too. All of a sudden, you'll start to see this thing come back in. The parapsis will disappear, and now all of a sudden I'm crashing into the planet, basically is what it's telling me. So here, I'm going to aim for the ocean. Now keep in mind the planet does spin, so that's going to change. So here I'm going to land in this bay, but the planet's spinning, so I may actually land out here. And I'm going to slow down even more, so I'm probably going to aim here. So now I know that I'm projected to land somewhere in here, and if I guess, and I take a look, it says about 4 minutes. So even though, again, if you just picture yourself around the moon, around another planet, there's still plenty of fuel in this stage, but I'm going to burn it because I can't land with that. Normally when I come into Earth, I just use the capsule, but what I would do is I'd point this ship towards retrograde, just the way I designed it, and it depends upon the way you design it, but I'd point it towards retrograde, I'd keep it that way, which means me get my camera free. There we go. Which means I'm now facing backwards. So the ship is actually heading right towards where you're looking, right? So if I look, down here is actually where I'm planning on crashing into the planet. So as I'm keeping the nose of this thing towards retrograde, I'm actually telling it, I'm going to spin it because it's awkward that I'm on my side. So now I'm level with the planet. And just like in a plane, I point down, it goes down. I point up, it goes up. Or backwards, inverted actually. And if I want, I can burn. And it'll slow my speed down. This thing's got a little motor in the back of it. Oh, I haven't turned it on yet. I like that motor, and it actually slows me down. Okay, you don't want to slow down too much. Be very careful about that. Because as you slow down, it's going to change your landing point. And what I would normally do is I would keep doing that until I got closer, because the other planets, at least the planets I've been to so far, the moon, they're much lower in gravity, so it's going to just come down slower. I press G to open my gear. Gives me these little landers, and then that's how you land. So you just be very careful with it. It takes a lot of practice. I've crashed a couple of them while doing it. You have to speed up. As you're coming down, you can turn these spotlights up here on, and it gives you a nice spot to look at. So the difference is, because I'm coming to Earth, I'm not going to use the lander. So I'm going to spin this around. I know I'm coming in, so I'm going to burn that stage. I have to have the bottom of this facing where the heat's coming from. So now I have zero control over this thing. I have no motors, I have nothing. But I'm dropping, so I know I'm going to land on the planet. This is the only time you do this, is when you're actually landing back on Kerman, or Earth, basically. Because now you can see. Well, here's the rest of my moon lander, or any other lander that I built. That's just why it says moon lander. It's the actual debris. There are other little ships you can build. I don't know how to do it. I'm still learning how to do that, but that's one that's just built out of parts. It's not an actual thing that you build and then connect. It's literally like a gas tank, lander legs, a ladder, and a motor. That's it. And you can use it to land. Now it looks a little goofy with these lights on it, but as you notice, as long as you keep the nose of the ship pointed the right way, which is at retrograde, which again is this little symbol, this thing eventually is going to enter the atmosphere. I've never gotten that message before. So I'm going to warp just a little bit. It's not going to let me warp a lot because I'm so close to the planet. I'm going to warp in so I get a little lower. Pull the nose up so that, again, the bottom of this thing, just like Apollo, just like, if you've watched Apollo 13, you got to keep the heat shield towards the planet. Oops, and I just messed it up because I'm flying at a high warp. If you don't come in the right way, it's going to burn up, so you keep the thing pointed in the right direction. The only stage I have left in this thing is the parachute. And that's basically it. You just keep going. Oh, I can't fly this thing in warp. And see, now I'm going to burn up and I'm going to crash because I just made that mistake. So now you can see the atmosphere burning on the actual ship. If you don't keep it pointed in the right direction, which is right at retrograde, it'll actually burn the whole ship up. And there we go. There's my parachute, which actually just deployed on its own, probably because of the heat, which won't affect it until it gets to about 500 meters. That parachute doesn't fully deploy. Hopefully it doesn't burn up. I've actually only done this once before successfully. Oh, and actually, look, there's debris that's falling from this exact same ship. So it beat me there. And it'll keep burning. Eventually it'll burn off. And that's it. And this thing will land, whether it's in water or land. It'll land because of the parachute. Again, if it's another planet, you use the lander, and you'd be vectoring, so you'd be pressing, you're pressing the throttle and shutting it off, and then just be real careful. Land it on the legs. You can get the guy out. You can EVA him. Come over here, click EVA. He'll get out. You can walk around, and then you just take off and go backwards. That's basically as far as I've gotten. So, I mean, you can do it at different scales. But those are all the tools between this video and the last video that pretty much you need, and it's just more just experimenting and learning what works and learning what doesn't work. So keep at it. If you learn anything different, let me know.